Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. My name is Jordan with a silent PH in the middle, and I'm joined always by my wonderful co-host, Sir Lucian, over at Sir Lucian Gaming, hanging out with his Tolus on the background. I've been watching some Tolus videos, and I am getting more and more jealous of that. I don't know if I want a $120 book, but I kind of want a $120 book. How are you this morning, sir?
Good. More question: do you want a 20-pound book? Is
That's
the question.
Like, I don't know if I have a shelf. Like,
no, I'm doing good. Good summers.
Cat.
Yeah, that's way too heavy. Felix is looking pretty big in some of those pictures.
He's mostly just fluff though. So
okay. Yeah. So summer's hitting. Been going good. We're in that transition of stuff going on. There's been so much news, and then all of a sudden this week it didn't seem like there was too much. Your video tried to stir up a little controversy. I don't know if you got anything back on that.
I'm not stirring controversy.
Seemed a little controversial to me.
Did you read that article though?
No.
Oh,
I watched your video.
Okay, yeah. So no, the article was kind of interesting. And so for those of us who don't know, Chris Perkins published basically like a blog post on through Wizards of the Coast on their website for D&D. And it just kind of said, hey, listen, going forward, we want to talk about like what we consider canon so that you guys don't get overly angry when it's like, well, this doesn't match this thing of Faerun, or this doesn't match Ravenloft XYZ. And it was a good read. And he very clearly kind of outlines like what he wants to do, or what Wizards of the Coast is doing going forward. And I made a video about it because though I'll be honest, those are the videos that kind of get likes, and I just was like, I want to check it out. But it's news that I think people should know, especially when I'm running a lore channel. Like, I'm not talking about every piece of controversy in the D&D space. There's no room for that on my channel, but this was about lore, so I wanted to talk about it. And more or less to summarize it, they are going to treat their properties like Marvel in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I kind of... the more I thought about that, I was like, that makes so much sense, because the problem, well, let me back up. So the problem is that Forgotten Realms is a living world. And I want to compare this a lot to comic books. And Lucian, you read comic books, don't you? Here and there?
Love them.
Yeah.
Yep.
So superhero comic books. We'll just pick Doctor Strange, my favorite comic book person. So Doctor Strange gets a writer, and they make a series of Doctor Strange stuff. And then that writer's like, okay, I'm going to leave. And another writer comes on, and he's like, I don't really like that Doctor Strange does this, or I don't like this character. I'm going to, like, change it. I'm going to do all this other stuff. And so he changes it. But he's still essentially Doctor Strange because Marvel looks at all of the writing because it's their property. It's not the property of the writer. So they're looking at all of this, and they're just like, this doesn't work. But this does. This is quintessentially Doctor Strange, but this doesn't work. Or you're like, hey, I want to make Doctor Strange into a rhino that flies around, not with a cape of levitation, but a jeep of levitation. And then they would stop you and say, that's not Doctor Strange. Like, he has a cape, it levitates. These are the things that we have established that make Doctor Strange Doctor Strange.
Known as canon. And
that's where we're getting confused. Because in... what they're basically saying is, in the Forgotten Realms, fans are saying if it's in a published book, it's canon.
It's canon.
So they're saying, like, all this R.A. Salvatore stuff, all these Ed Greenwood novels, all these, whoever wrote this book, James Lauder wrote this book, The Ring of Winter. If it was published, then they're basically saying, or fans are saying, well, that must be canon. And then now we have these 5th edition adventures that come out, and they're just like, well, these 5th edition adventures are breaking canon, because when does this actually happen? And everyone's really confused. And so Chris Perkins said, that's not canon. We're going to throw all that, not throw it out. They acknowledge that it exists, but they're going to say, going forward, the 3 core books, not the adventures for 5th edition, just the 3 core books, the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and the Monster Manual, those will be canon for 5th edition. And if they ever make a new edition, then they'll have, carte blanche to do whatever they want with that. I don't know. It's really interesting to have that take. And the way I was thinking of it is then you could do a really cool spin-off. Like they do it all the times. Like the Doctor Strange in the movies is very different from Doctor Strange in the comic books. And like, what if Doctor Strange in the comic books dies? That doesn't necessarily mean that movie Doctor Strange doesn't die. Like he can still have different kinds of adventures and all this other stuff. And I was equating it in my video to the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. In the comics are Magneto's children, but in the movies they have a different origin story, but it's those characters that are important. And I think Hasbro / Wizards of the Coast is doubling down on their characters, which has been evident in, they just released Dark Alliance. So we want Catti-brie, Brunor, Drizzt, Guinevere. Like, they don't want to lose those characters. And if we allow Forgotten Realms to be a living world that evolves and changes, well, they're going to just die of old age. So, I don't know.
I liked your analogy on that one. The Scarlet and Silver Surfer one I thought was pretty good, but I really
Silver Surfer too. Yeah, that's right. I talked about him.
But I thought the Spider-Man one was maybe a little more on point of where you were going, because they have rebooted with different directors the same character, and nobody's quite sure if they're in the same universe, if they're not in the same universe. There's 3 different Spider-Men at this point.
Nobody's
where do they show up?
And I shouldn't say nobody, but I wonder
I'm sure there
because there probably are, but like I don't see everyone hating on Spider-Man Far From Home,
right,
because of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. They're just like, that doesn't fit in with this. I'm going to boycott. I'm not going to watch it. It's like, no, it's a fun movie. Go enjoy it. And that's how they want you to think of D&D. Like, I'm boycotting Icewind Dale because of all this other stuff. How does it? No, it's a fun adventure. Go buy it. Go play it. If you don't want to, don't do it. That's fine. And if you have your own personal reasons, but to have a reason of it's not flowing canonically and stuff. And I think this is how they're going to change Drow lore. I think they're going to update it in some way. And that's probably the bigger controversy, because people are all upset about, well, the Drow are evil, or the Drow are this, and I think originally TSR days, their blood was mixed with demons, which is another reason that they're very evil, because they were trying to create their house line stronger, create their bloodline to be stronger. So they decided to do that. It's just like, whoa, you got demon blood now. That's not good. Like,
you got to have evil to fight. That's the whole game. You got to fight evil. Something's got to be evil.
But the idea that you can be redeemable, I think, is what they're trying to push. So, and also Chris Perkins made a great point, which is the whole reason I started my channel. So it's kind of funny. People are overwhelmed to run a game in the Forgotten Realms because they don't know the like 8,000 year history, and I don't know it either, but like I started my channel because I realized that there was a niche for that. Like somebody probably wanted to know about, what happened in 1292 DR and stuff. And so
I think the comic books, they tackled it early on the right way, and I'm just surprised Wizards of the Coast hasn't done the same thing. They have a company that's partnered with them that does it right adjacent to them, and it's multiverse option, because that's exactly how Marvel handled. If you have Doctor Strange, who all of a sudden is gender swapped, or a different person, or is a kid in this one but is an adult doctor in this one, there's a lot of different universes in Marvel that you can point to. There's Marvel 616. There's they have the actual universe laid out, and sometimes they bring that stuff together and they make it this. So that's how you could have Spider-Mans that are very different. When that whole comic book series they did with the Spider-Verse, was that whole, there are multiple spiders. There's anime Spider-Man, there's noir Spider-Man, there's all this stuff. You can have all of that, and that's what I think they need. So what they needed was, you have 80s universe D&D, you have 2020 universe D&D. They're all in the multiverse. Sometimes they can come together, and as a dungeon master, you can pick which multiverse world you want to run your game in. And that means I don't have to justify how Dragon on the Mount fits with a Borderlands, or a Borrow King. Some type of
Temple
adventure.
of Elemental Evil or something.
Or I don't have to explain, why is there no Temple of Elemental Evil anywhere near that? We're here at Dungeon Mount. I can't find the temple. You're like, that doesn't have to exist.
Yeah, and it's so I don't know. And it was funny. I got a lot of comments where they're like, this works for comics because comics have multiple universes or timelines or blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't work for D&D. And I'm like, who says D&D doesn't have that?
It
like,
could work.
You're just saying like, oh, well, they don't have that. And I was really blown away because I'm like, is that all you need? You just need them to be like, there are multi-universes in D&D. And then you're fine with it? Like, the prime material plane is actually an infinite amount of multiverses. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, and I think it's because they shy away from this whole 5th edition. We've talked about this a lot. They've shied away from Planescape a lot. They've shied away from describing a lot of different planes like they used to. And all of a sudden, everything kind of seems like a one world, and it can't be connected to Eberron, and it can't be connected to the other things. And they're really touchy-feely about it can't connect to some of the Magic the Gathering settings they put out. They're just on their own. Instead of just embracing the idea that there's multiple worlds and their universe, they are creating a multiple universe or multiple worlds or multiple planes or whatever term they want to use, but they're not embracing it. It's like they're always hiding from it. They're never mentioning it like they used to. So in some ways, I could see how the argumentative portion of the community would say, well, they're actively telling us it's not multiverse because they're always shying away from it. They're never embracing that idea in anything at this point, when it seems like the most logical thing to say. And they do say it in some ways. They're like, well, your world is your world and my world is my world. That's the concept right there. And if they push that more, I think then that kind of canonicity thing goes away a little bit more. And I'm sure Matt runs into it when people play Wild Mount or whatever. He's made a concerted effort when that book came out, Matt Mercer, to say your world is yours and you get to do whatever you want in it, and I want you to do whatever you want in it. It doesn't have to be mine. It doesn't have to follow my timeline. You can if you want, and that to me is what's missing from the current writers. And I love Jeremy and I love Chris and I love that whole team. So I'm not somebody who downs on D&D every chance they get. I love the team. I just feel like they haven't really come out and embraced that as much.
Yeah.
So it leaves room for dissension, when they could just quash it. But that's what I was thinking when I was watching your video. I thought, you're dead on the Spider-Man analogy or a Star Trek analogy, because there's been several directors that have done Star Trek. You could go the comic book route. You could go the book route. There's lots of people that wrote Conan books, and there are different types of Conans.
And don't get me wrong, like I love the idea that the Forgotten Realms was evolving with
exists.
Well, no, like that you had first edition, and then we had the Time of Troubles, and that explains why all of these second edition things were happening. And then Oliver runs in with a glass.
Thanks, hi, Oliver. Don't drop that.
But you have all of these. Sorry, and so then the Spell Plague. Like, a lot of people don't like the Spell Plague, but it was really cool for what it was, because something happened and magic was changed forever, kind of a thing. Yeah. And I liked that idea. And obviously the fans didn't like it, so they went back to how magic kind of used to work. But when I say a living Forgotten Realms, that's cool. Eberron never did that. Eberron doesn't have a living world. You always play 2 years after the thing. And so Eberron feels more of, here's the 4th edition reboot for Eberron. Here's the 5th edition reboot for Eberron. It's just Eberron, but with these new rules. Whereas Forgotten Realms was trying to justify, why do we have new rules, Yeah. And I like the idea that what the Forgotten Realms was trying to do, but in hindsight, unless you're planning out a 30-year Realms with an ending, I don't think you can keep doing that, because they're trying to justify things that authors made, in the 1980s. Yeah. And it's like, it just doesn't, I don't know if this works, but everybody likes Drizzt. I don't want to lose that IP. And so they're really, I think that's the direction they want to go. But going back to your Matt Mercer thing, he also said, like, your game could have the Mighty Nine, could not. Like maybe you're the Mighty Nine, And so I kind of like that idea of just like, we always talk about the realm, or I hear a lot of criticism about the realms, where it's like, well, why am I an adventurer trying to save the realms? Why isn't Drizzt saving it? Why isn't Elminster saving it, and all these other people? And it's like, well, they're either busy, or maybe they don't exist in your realms. Like, those are the heroes of the books. you're the heroes of this game. But it's fun to run into Jarlaxle, and you know that character because of the Drizzt novels. But so I
see. That's the thing I think you miss too, is that if you don't tie some things together, then you miss out on the crossover moment when that character steps into the scene and you're like, oh my God, we're watching a Spider-Man movie, but Black Panther shows up for 10 seconds or 20 seconds. And you're like, yeah, Black Panther's here. You know, you're just like, you're going, that's what made Avengers and all of that so crazy, is because they brought all these separate things together. And that's what Wizards of the Coast could be doing, is they have all these separate things, and then every now and then you could bring them together for that big moment of, oh my God, Drizzt is here. What is going on? The Harpers are showing up in force, all the Harper books. And you're like, what's the Red Wizards of Thay have just entered the field.
And then you guys are like fighting alongside your heroes. That could be really cool. Yeah.
But if we go with what he's saying right now, only those 5th edition books are canon, then Red Wizards of Thay, we don't even know what the canon is on 5th edition Red Wizards of Thay, because they've not told us anything hardly. We get little snippets. And no canon on Red Wizards of Thay unless we go to previous versions. Or we just make it up on our own wholesale. So I feel a little wishy-washy on the whole thing.
I do too. I understand. Like, I talked to Ted about it too, because Ted made another video about the same thing. And he's like, I'm confused. And I was like, it is confusing. They're being ambiguous on purpose, which I find frustrating. But I understand why they're doing that. Like, they don't want to commit to then have you yell at them later when they break that commitment. So, but it is frustrating that they're being kind of ambiguous about this.
And I get it. It's not their fault that in the 80s, writers wrote about certain things and wrote adventures in certain ways. And they did tropes. They did some of them kind of terrible things like we wouldn't do now, right? You know, we wouldn't concentrate so much on colonialism, or we wouldn't concentrate so much on a slavery angle, or we might not concentrate so much on a race war of some sort now. Like, maybe we handle those subjects more sensitively, and we have a better understanding now of the community and the world we live in now, which is different. Why you would get mad at Chris or any of them because of that stuff makes no sense at all. And it's not their job to fix what happened in the 80s. It's not, part of their job title. They're just here to make games. And if they want to change something, then change something and say, we're changing it. We're here in 2020. If you like that in your game, you go keep it in your game. If you and your players want to have a heavy emphasis on how that 80s game was and whatever trope that was or whatever stereotype that was, and you're all happy, you're not hurting anybody else, then you guys go, or you guys and girls go do that. But we're making games for a lot of people, so ours is going to be a lot less of what you're doing or wanting.
It's that same argument I hear about comics all the time, where it's like, it's really awful when new comic authors write these classic characters in a new way, and then they also break down your door and burn your old comics so you can never read those again. Like, all of the material that Wizards of the Coast has made, or TSR and stuff, is available for purchase on PDF and stuff. They want you to buy that, but they're just saying we're not tied to it going forward, And so you're right. If you wanted to make a cool, like, I have that 4th edition Menzo Berenzin book that I want to run. Like, the Drow are going to be evil in that campaign. I don't think my players are going to be evil. Like, my player Drow are probably going to be like, do we, like, take down the matriarchy? Like, kind of a thing?
The campaign is, we live in an evil empire. What happens when we don't want to be a part of that evil empire, but we are fully in that evil empire? We grew up here, our friends are here, our family's here, they're all part of the evil empire. What do we do? If you want to run a campaign like that, that's going to be a tough one. There's going to be a lot of crazy things that could happen, but you could explore that. And to me, campaigns are about exploring ideas and exploring what you as the dungeon master and your players want to do, not just one and not just the other. Like, it has to be kind of, you both want to do it. But if you both want to do it, if me and I want to explore that kind of storyline with you, then let's do that.
And I want to clarify, Genghis Galahad, yes, Marvel doesn't come and burn down your comics. That was the joke, is that
it was
people
the fans.
Feel like they're reacting to the point where it's like that. You're basically saying that old stuff isn't relevant anymore, isn't this, and they feel hurt by it.
The stuff
and I understand
love.
That you feel hurt because you love it. but it's still there. And that was my argument, is like, nobody is ever taking it away from you. We're not book burning. We're not doing this. Like, the old lore still exists. It's just like, if they want to change Drow, they're going to change Drow. But like, hey, those old stories are still there. They're all, anyway. But
I did like in our Twitch chat here, it also said, and in another universe, Jordan's daughter brings him a glass of wine.
Yes, there you go. Olivia? What?
Yeah. What are you doing here? How do you have a glass?
Oh, too funny. But this conversation got me thinking yesterday and this morning about what kind of supplements do you like in your Dungeons and Dragons? Because like off the top of my head, we have like adventures, like full adventures, you have little like one shots and stuff too, or you have a collection like Candlekeep. Like Candlekeep was a collection. Do you like system neutral stuff? Like that could be Hot Springs Island. I don't know if I showed you, Lucian, but I have a system neutral hexagon desert crawl that I found that came with tiles. Yeah, and you put down the tiles, but it's all system neutral, but it has like the camel necromancers of the desert who have undead camels that carry all their cargo back and forth, and just fun little things like that. But there's no stats in it. Or do you like player option stuff? And obviously players will probably like that, but... Or I guess I should just say lore books in general. That's another one. But
those are good
if you were going to... I mean, we're talking about writing this Cliff campaign that we're kind of putting together the best we can. And a lot of... Me and you have been going back and forth and asking ourselves, well, what kind of supplement do we want out of this? Because I'm a firm believer that you should make stuff that you want to consume and buy, because odds are somebody else will want that too, Maybe not everybody. It might not be a market bestseller, but at the same time, like... It's like, I really like this, and I've always approached my videos like that too, where it's like I make videos that I want to watch. So what do you like? Like, this got me thinking too, because I'm like, I don't know. Like, do you want a full adventure? Do you want just help?
Yeah, I like campaign world books for sure, especially if they tie into some other pop culture thing that I know about, or a campaign book that when I pick it up, it's very compelling world that they've created with enough meat to it that I can really dive in and find out all the different things that are going on about this world. But it's also a world that has plenty of mystery and plenty of other stuff. And I'll give you an example. Monty Cook's Numenera is a campaign world that when you read it, just traps you in. You want to know everything about the Ninth Worlds that you can find. And you want as many books about the Ninth World as you can find, because you're just so interested in what that world is. Maybe not because I'm going to run the game and I'm going to run everything by canon or anything like that, but as a dungeon master, there's so much going on in there. When you're reading Tolas, it's so big and it's so full of stuff that you have the ability to dive into it and keep diving deeper and deeper if you want. You could read the first 20 pages, put it down, and run a Tolas campaign of all the stuff you wanted to create. Just use a couple of the things it mentioned in that first 20 pages and move on. Or you can dive into page 357 and keep using that piece, and 640, whatever, you can go deeper and deeper and deeper. So I love a good campaign book, and I want player options. Yeah. But that's going to lead to the one thing that everybody gets mad about. I'm not one of them, but a lot of people get mad about bloat. A lot of people get mad about there's too much options or there's too many things going on. It's too complicated. I am never that complainer. I am never the one who says we have too many player options. We have too many classes. If we had 74 classes to choose from, I'm still on board. I'm still there. And if each one of them had 3 subclasses and you could mix, I'm still on board that whole thing. Now, I know many other people won't like that and would hate that, but those are the two things that really get me. And Storm King's Thunder was really good because it went deep into the Forgotten Realms if you wanted to, but it was like 3-sentence, 4-sentence deep. So when you heard about some of the towns, Silvery Moon, or I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. What's the one that sits in between Waterdeep and you're heading up to Silvery Moon? There's a Yarder, I think is the one there.
Oh yeah, like
another
Yartar or something.
So you get another 4 or 5 sentence thing on that one, so you get to understand what that is and some of this other place. I love that. I love the idea that if I want more, there is more for me to go find. I don't like a book that's so thin and there's not going to be any more of them, that you don't have anywhere that you can dive deeper. So I want a book that's a campaign setting with the option to dive deeper, and then player options is where I'm at. But what about you? I mean, you're a lore guy. You run a lore channel.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because you say you want like adventures, like, but lore, open world stuff, and player options. So that's like three books in one kind of thing. But yeah. But no, I really like Storm King's Thunder for the same thing. And doing our Cliff thing, I've been thinking a lot about what is the word? Hex crawls.
Yeah.
And I really like the idea of hex crawls, and I don't have it with me, but I bought a hex crawl thing the other day for OSR that I've been reading, and it's really fun. With the idea of a hex crawl, exploration is kind of the key thing. Mm-hmm. And I think when the player, sometimes the Dungeon Master knows what's going on, but when I ran Hot Springs Island, that was a system-neutral hex crawl where when they got to an area, I would roll dice to see what was happening, and then we would all have to like make it up on the fly. And it was really fun to not know what was going to be around that corner for me as the Dungeon Master. So I think I like a setting that's lore and history, but I like it that it's system-neutral because sometimes, I don't know, perfect example, Numenera. Like, Numenera is really cool, but what if I don't want to use the Numenera rules? And Monte Cook's been doing a really good job. They've imported a lot of that stuff into 5e because they realize that the market is 5e and all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's like, man, that world's so cool. Like, I wish but I just don't really want to play Cypher. You know, I really want to play this. And I'm running into this right now where I don't want to, I want to run games using my Modular D6 thing that I'm trying to write. Yep. Well, there's lots of worlds out there, but like I have to, take them and things like that. So I've been taking a lot of OSR stuff. We lost a subscriber because I made people upset.
You made them upset. You're out, buddy. Bye, subscribe. We'll see you soon. You'll come back.
Well, it happens. I can't make everybody happy. But I like the idea of that lore and history and world, and then I can take that and kind of shape it into what I want. Now, Storm King's Thunder has a very strong directional, story arc, and there's a reason. Mm-hmm. There's kind of a snippet in the middle where you're just kind of exploring and doing whatever you want. But I think that should have been in the Sword Coast Adventurers Guide, and so I could have bought the Sword Coast Adventurers Guide and gone this way and that way and all this other stuff. I find
like that module is almost like the Sword Coast Adventurers Guide because you learn about the ordning, you learn about there's like all of the 200 different cities and towns and things that are all around that area. You learn about just if the forest has a name, you hear something at least about it. What's there? A little snippet. Now, it might not be more than a sentence or two, but it's enough to say, here's a playground. You decide how you want to play in the playground.
And no, your Revenar game, I feel, is the same thing. Because you had your base and you go out and do stuff and come back. And to an extent, I really enjoy... not to an extent, I really enjoy Ghosts of Saltmarsh for similar reasons. That also kind of has a long-running campaign, but really it was like, where do you guys want to go? And like you had your home base and things like that. So I don't know. There's like stuff like that I just really want to explore more. So it's weird because I think a lot of people like to come up with their own lore, and it's like, give me player options, give me a book of tools. I need like a million things you find in a restaurant, or I need a city builder, or I need a forest builder. Yeah. And then I'll incorporate that into my game with my lore. And that's all fine and dandy, but I almost like the opposite. And then I'll come up with the player options. Like, I like the idea of, like, we'll build spells. Like, that's, for me, that seems easy. Like, I'll build a bunch of custom spells for you. Or, you want a magic item? Like, I'll make a magic item for you. Or, you want to play this weird type of druid? Let's build a subclass. But I just want, like, a cool world to play in. And, again, I don't have the PDF with me, or the file with me. I wish I did. But I bought this thing, and I think it's called Nightland. And it's an OSR, or Old School Essentials, campaign setting, and it's got a little like city, but the idea is that the sun has gone out and everything is in darkness on the world, And so at the very beginning, he says, like, this could be another plane that your players go to. This could be, like, one day they wake up and the sun literally just goes out. And everyone's like, what's happening? And they have to deal with the aftermath of it. But there are factions. There are different types of people. There's, like, a solar cult that goes around, like, hunting little pockets of sunshine to, like, preserve the light. And I was like, this is so cool. I want to play in this. And so I'm trying to adapt that for my Modular D6 game. And it's like, you know, it's OSE, but I can still figure it out. So, yeah. Anyway.
Right, and I think those are all, you buy lots of OSR books, so it makes sense. Lately, yeah. It makes sense those are the types of things you want, because those are the things you typically buy, for sure. I'm okay with, like, Magic the Gathering books. I'm okay with more option books. Like, I'd love more monster manuals, really. I would not have been opposed if every year they came out with a nice big monster manual style book, even if they just called it Monster Manual 1 through 6 at this point.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have cared, because that's something that everybody can use in their adventure, and it's something that can drive your imagination and creativity. Is when you see the artwork matched with a player block or a stat block and a little bit of history or what they might think, and you can take it and turn it. You can say, no, you know what, I like this picture of this thing, I'm going to make it this other thing.
Yeah.
Or I can use it the way they have it. So I wouldn't mind stuff like that.
No, and that's the best inspiration I think you could get. And Sly Flourish, I'm a big fan of him. He did a whole thing where he read the monster manual cover to cover. And he said, he's like, I have infinite amount of story ideas now. Because it like, you read about this monster, and then you read another one, you're like, oh, what if they're best friends? And then, all of a sudden, you're like putting together a huge thing. And rather than building the encounter or the campaign and then looking for the right monster, I think you just need to casually read the monster manual, and you'll develop the right campaign or the right thing for that monster. And so I really like that. Yeah. Or for that, you'll use that monster in a creative way.
Yeah, and I think it's the combination of the artwork and a writer together.
Yeah,
they're combining their superpowers, right? Because you can have somebody who can write something really evocative and really cool. You can have an artist do something that's really evocative and really cool. And if you can put those two things together, boy, you're like peanut butter and chocolate or peanut butter and jelly or whatever your favorite peanut butter and whatever is.
And I don't know if it was Tomb of what's the Kobold Plus? There's Creature Codex and Tome of Monsters. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I have the which one is that? Tome of Beasts.
Tome of Beasts, thank you. So I can't remember if it's Creature Codex or Tome of Beasts 2, but one of my favorite monsters in that is a demon lord who's a frog known as the Collector. And his whole idea is collecting souls and artifacts and things like that. And he has his own demi-plane in Avernus. And Celeste Conowitch wrote that, but that is the perfect example, I feel, of the artist and the author really combining to create something cool, because that picture perfectly encapsulates that creature. And then the lore behind it is that he was just a frog that somehow fell into the river Styx, and because of the weird evil energies became sentient and is now a demon lord running around. And I was like, that's so cool. And I love the monster. He's really difficult. And so in my mind, I'm like, I want to build a whole adventure around him. And so,
my example of that is the Fiend Folio cover, the art of the Githyanki, and then you flip to the pages and you read about the Githyanki and the Githzerai, and you're like, oh my God, these things are out there, and they're in a war with the Illithids, and oh my God, there's like spell jamming going on, and there's all kinds of stuff. But look at the artwork. The artwork is just crazy off the hook. That's the perfect thing, I think. I want more of that stuff. I want more Fiend Folios. I want more of those kinds of things too. So I guess I want it all.
No, and that's the thing, as I do too. But like, I think about, I guess a better question is not like, what kind of supplements do you like? Because I like all of them for different reasons.
Which ones don't you like?
But no,
it might be a smaller list.
I would say like, which ones do you want to make? Like, and so, because we're talking about this, and it's like, well, me and you have been talking a lot about, we want there to be player options. I've been thinking a lot about lore. Like, why does this even? Well, you have too. We were like, how does this even exist? You know, and so we're trying to figure out like what happened that there's a giant cliff. And so, but we also like to make up our own adventures. So I think a lot of it. The more we write about this and the more we talk about it, it feels like we're going to be like, well, no, here's the playground. Just go, your goal is to get to the bottom for whatever reason, and then you guys make the adventure from there. So
yeah,
super fun.
Because that's what they'll do. They're going to take it. They're going to have their idea, whatever dungeon master runs it, and they're going to want to, they have some idea in their head that goes, oh my god, that's such a cool idea. And what if when they go this far down, this thing happens? Because that's really what it's about, right? It's a feature, and the mystery is what happens when the players decide to go down, and what happens to them. That's all of it right there. It's how is yours world going to be that way? What's going to happen in mine? Are they going to find layers of civilization? Are they going to run into new races and new thing? Is the underworld doing something? I was writing in just like campaign hooks, trying to think of some cool things. What if something's coming up and they're meeting something coming down? Then what do they do? Just all of the cool things that you could do with a very prominent feature that flips the world on its axis a little bit. You're not on a level playing field. You're on a vertical, like you say. I like the word too, vertical hex crawl, because I don't think anybody's done that.
Yeah.
I love the idea of vertical hex crawl. Just those ideas. So those have been pinging off our heads all for the last probably the last month we've been talking about.
Yeah.
It's been really good. So.
Trying to wrap our heads around it. I've got so many writing projects. I just contacted Lex to help me with one of them, because I told him, I'm like, I'm never going to finish this project unless I get help. And he's like, oh, I'd love to. That sounds awesome. So he's like helping me write some stuff right now.
Very cool.
But let's talk about your games. Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Is that the only one you're playing in /run?
Yeah.
You're not running run right now, are you?
No,
Okay.
I keep wanting to, but then work has been pretty crazy.
Yeah. I think I need to cut back on some of my games too. I was thinking, I was like, I'm just not going to get things done if I keep playing every week.
I think once the cold hits, I'm ready. But right now I can go out to my pool, I can go ride the motorcycle.
Lots of stuff to do.
I can get outside because we were inside for a whole year anyway, so I'm trying to do more of that stuff. And I'm just working more just to get in a better position anyways. So it was like a lot hasn't happened. But Dungeon of the Mad Mage has been great because it's a nice, big, full-on dungeon delve is what I want. We're getting to be a higher level, so that's super cool. I did come across, normally when we would bring these up back in our old shows, one of the reasons we would always look to talk about something is not just that we're running a game and talk about our game, but something that happened in it that you think would generate a discussion. And something happened in this last one that I thought was interesting. And it's being in a terrible spot in the initiative order.
Ooh, yeah.
So our wizard, everybody rolled initiative, and he's in the middle, and then right behind him is they were bullywugs, and they had weapons that could make you roll, if they hit, a constitution save. And if you failed that constitution save, you were paralyzed until the end of your next turn. And
then they could just attack you again and paralyze you.
And now, because they're in the initiative order right by, and there's nothing, and so our wizard missed that constitution save every single time. He spent the whole combat paralyzed and not able to do anything. And I just thought, wow, to me, I would walk away from that with a bad taste, even as the dungeon master, because even Danimal was kind of like, man, I'm sorry that they just, but 7 of these guys are going to shoot their bows at you or whatever, because you're where you're at and you have no way to not be there anymore because you're paralyzed until the end of your next turn. What do you do? Does that an indication that initiative is broken? Is that an indication that paralyzing a player to the end of their turn so they can't do anything, is that broken in some way? Can you not paralyze a player? Should you never paralyze a player? I don't know. It really started making me think.
Yeah. What's the flip side of that, though? I've had lots of combats where the monk stunning strikes a creature, and then the entire thing goes by, and it's like, well, at the end of his next turn, the thing's no longer paralyzed, and so then it or no longer stunned, so then the creature wakes up, but, the wizard puts it to sleep or something, immediately before it can even act. And it's like, oh, okay.
And the players will do it for sure.
And they're just like, that's so cool. And it's like, so it has to kind of work both ways. That's interesting, though. I'm in a Eberron game on Fridays that we're streaming on Kugo the Mighty's Twitch channel.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually we'll have the stuff up on YouTube for you guys to watch if you're interested. But he's doing an initiative I've never done before. So he rolls initiative for the monsters. We all roll initiative. He takes the averages, I think, and then it's we all get to go, or the monsters all get to go. So in that case, we don't have it. And so in that round, I would be like, okay, let that wizard roll his save at the very beginning first. And it's like, oh, he missed it. Well, then the other players can be like, okay, how do we help him? Or how should we move him? So you can kind of, you're not deciding what you do, but the group is collectively deciding. This isn't perfect, because we run into a lot of problems where it's like, have I gone yet? And like other people are just like, I don't know, do we go? And so I try to jump the gun and say like, okay, I'm going to go here. Like, can you help me go over here and help me do this and stuff? Side note, these people are the most anti-fighting D&D group I've ever been in. We've gotten into so many combats where I'm like, all right, I pull out everything and I'm going to cast spells. And then they're like, let's talk through it. And the last game we played, the monsters were actively, and I say monsters, but it was like some halfling and some warforged and stuff, but they were actively assaulting us. And we still somehow talked them out of not fighting us. And that's with Zix the Goblin running around, hitting them with stones and stuff. And we're just kind of like, wait, what? So it's really interesting. But initiative is weird.
So I was wondering about, because it gets locked in. It's almost, there's no real abilities that change it once it's happened, I don't think.
Yeah.
I can't think of a class that you can do anything.
My mimic class.
You can hold your action, but holding your action seems like you don't then all of a sudden, because you're waiting, you don't get to do all of your things. You only get to do one thing because it takes up your reaction and you have to. So I wonder if initiative is a weak point in the combat system, and if it's something that I'm sure there's lots of people that have created other styles or other ways. I was thinking about re-rolling at the beginning, or like you said, it's like an all or nothing. One side goes, your side goes, and do you get it all done? Do you mix it up? Or I've seen other ones where it's like we played in a game where it was by actions, right? Who's going to cast spells? Who's going to move? Who?
And so then it's like you declare, I'm going to move, I'm going to do this.
These people
and I'm going to cast a spell. And then all movement happens right now. And all melee attacks happen here. And then, and so you know that if I say I'm going to do a ranged attack, well, so-and-so could move into or right out of the way before that happens. And it's kind of interesting.
So a different way of doing it. Or at least a way to break I think the monk's stunning blow is broken. I think that is a broken mechanic.
Strike is,
I don't think, I know the players love it. Anybody that plays a monk is going to want to do it and they're going to want to play it. But chain stunning something over and over and over, I think there should be diminishing returns on some type of a stun. So the first one hits, but you get a plus on your save the next time you roll it. You get another plus on your save to the point where at some point you cannot be stunned again.
Yeah, my body is
just
now
you're done.
Immune to this power or something.
Yeah. So it's not going to happen for 6 in a row, or 7 times. Because we fought in that combat. It was a big combat. It must have been a full 7 or 8 rounds. Maybe almost got to the 10th round, somewhere in there, 7, 8, 9. And imagine if you're the wizard, you're there for 3 hours of your game, you miss that one roll all 7 times. There's nothing you can do. I mean, it's just I didn't think that was a very fun mechanic at that point. So I in my mind, I think in Revenor, when I'm running my campaign, that's something I would probably switch. Or I would try to do like a diminishing return. Or I might pull out Stunning Strike. I've pulled out certain things and give them something else that's cool that they could do. Maybe talk with the player and say, okay, Stunning Strike is just going to screw everything up. I get it. Let's come up with something that you like, that's cool, you'll love to be able to do through combat, that's can take the place of that.
Yeah.
Even though you won't have that, but you'll have something cool, and we'll work together, both of us, and come up with something really cool that you're going to like also. So you're like, can I do a flying leap kick thing that does this and this and you'd be like, yeah, that sounds super cool. Let's have that be your ability instead of Stunning Strike. And for my creatures, I'm not going to do over and over, stun, and you can't do anything to. Or just change that one thing. Your roll happens at the beginning of your turn, not at the end of your turn.
Yeah, so you're not out of a whole
lost.
Turn,
You already lost the turn you got hit. Why make them lose the second turn also? you know.
Well, you didn't lose the turn you got hit because you don't get hit on your turn.
But you could get hit before.
Well, yeah, but then that's the turn that you've lost. So I guess the way you phrase it is that I lose two turns, and it's like no, like I either go and then I get hit and I lose this turn, and yeah, that stinks if you roll and then you lose turn. Like that's the chain that we were talking about.
Once you lose the first one is when it happens.
Yeah.
That starts the chain. Yeah.
So another interesting initiative that I did a basic fantasy game. I've never played basic fantasy, but it's this open source OSR game that I got invited to. And he was like, oh yeah, we do popcorn initiative. And it was just like, he threw that out like everybody knew that words. And I was like, what the hell is popcorn initiative? So they had to explain it to me. But this I really like is one person nobody rolls initiative. You just decide who's going to go first. And so let's say if it's me and it's Lucian and I don't know, Anna Blackmon and Sky in our chat here, so we have 4 people and the monster, and I say I'm gonna go first, and so then I go. I get to pick who goes next. So I pick Anna, and then Anna picks Lucian, and then Lucian picks Sky. Well, now the only person who hasn't gone is the monster. So Sky has to pick the monster, but because it's the start of a new round, the monster goes twice. So it goes for this round, and then it starts the next round. So that's really interesting because you can manipulate like, well, I want to go and you want to go, and then but if everybody's trying to like, oh, you know what? If we gang up on him and kill this monster really fast, but then if you don't, all of a sudden that monster gets to go two times back to back, and it's still fair, but going back to back is huge for a monster or a player. Because you can pull off some interesting combos that way.
Ooh, and I like that too.
It's sad because there's a lot of things that are like, but I have a high dex, I have a high, initiative. I want to be able to use that. Or
I get an ability.
Our wizard applies his intelligence to his initiative, so it kind of takes away those abilities. But boy, do I think it's a lot more fun. Like
my Twilight Cleric can give advantage on initiative rolls.
See,
person. So that would go away.
You lose those abilities, which I don't want to take those away, but boy, I like the idea of this popcorn initiative. The more I think about it, I was like, I'm going to do that in the future. So
you just give them something else that's, if you take an ability away, give an ability.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. And work with the player to say, hey, there's going to be this one cool thing you can't do. Because I took good berries away in Revenor also, because I thought that was just, I wanted a game about survival and having to find food and shelter and stuff, and it just didn't work if all of a sudden the druid took good berry because they knew my game was about survival. So I was like, nope, taking that right out. Doesn't work.
That's also a good point. Kugo is in our Eberron game. We're marking rations and stuff, which is the first time that I've really played a game where we've done that. And he said, like think of rations as just like dried jerky, and I mean it'll sustain you, but it's not good. And so he said that there will be rewards for buying really nice meals in towns. There will be rewards for finding fresh fruit in the forest, kind of a thing. And there will be hindrances if you just rely on rations. And I thought that was cool. And I don't know the mechanics of it yet, but I like that idea of, and I would think Goodberry is the same way. Like if you eat nothing but conjured food, you're going to have some kind of magical problem later on. But like, it's going to keep you alive. Like it's better than starving to death, but and it might taste really good, but how nourishing is this? Are you going to get some exhaustion levels or something? Really opened my eyes to that, because I do think that is way too powerful and not too powerful, I shouldn't say that, but it undermines a lot of class abilities about foraging for food.
Sure.
And you have barbarians, you have rangers, you have all these people that can go out and find food in the right area, that it's like, well, that's really sad if they don't get to utilize that because I can just cast Goodberry and we're fine, But there's consequences from too much Goodberry. That's what I like. So
yeah, that's what should be added. Yeah. I think there should be more status effects that are slight disadvantages or minuses to what you're doing, and not big. So we have the normal stuff, and like you said, exhaustion levels are cool, but it'd be nice to have just small negatives that could happen too, like slowing of your movement rate might be a good one. maybe you do get a disadvantage on initiative rolls because you've been eating good berry all the time or something, or something like that. You start to get scurvy and now you need oranges, or whatever.
Or what if dark vision is out to 60 feet for a lot of creatures? What if your day vision was now out to 60 feet?
Right.
And your eyes are getting blurry. Vision. You can't see very far. You're just like, I need it's not about a good rest. Like, gosh, I need a steak.
It's about nutrition. Yeah. So
not that steaks are healthy. I don't mean to say anything like that. I just...
How dare you?
We're having a barbecue later. I bought some steaks. So that's what's on my mind.
Now I'm hungry. Good job. What about Jordan's games, though? That was my game. That was an interesting thing that popped up. And I thought from both a dungeon master and a player perspective, the idea of somebody losing their turn for an entire evening through just bad rolls. Because it's going to happen. Every now and then, you're going to string together bad rolls. And
I think that's the game that, and that's... I equate that with, like, character death. Yeah. Like... It sucks to lose your character. Like, it really does. Mm-hmm. And, like, it sucks to be completely useless in a fight. But we need those also, because then the next time you're going to save everybody with, like, a clutch teleportation or something, And so, I don't know. You got to take the bad with the good. And it does suck. Mm-hmm. I've been there. But it's kind of the same thing with death or weird things like... I watched a video a long time ago where a character failed a save on a curse or something, and they aged 50 years. And you'd be like, well, I don't know, that's kind of like okay, but like she was human, and she was just like, I'm not okay with my character looking like this now. Like, can I reverse that? And they're like, and now you're old. Like, and there wasn't a lot of like mechanical problems with that, but like she was not happy. And it was almost like a character death, So because you're not playing the character you want to play anymore, So,
and it was forced on you.
Yeah, and no, that's the thing. It was forced. Yeah, you were like, I didn't know that I was going to do this.
Wasn't my action, or I guess it would be in that case, but if it's not if you have no agency, it gets taken away from you. I think that's the part that can be a little trouble because the game is about agency.
Yeah.
So if you don't get it, then what are we playing?
So I did not play Thursday night's game because I went to a birthday party instead. That was a lot of fun. But I did play on my Friday game with Kugo, and this is something that I wanted to talk to you about, Lucian, is we did... I missed last Friday's show because of the Forgotten Realms Magic the Gathering launch. But Kugo messaged me and he's like, hey, do you want to do a one-on-one session to kind of like catch you up? And I was like, all right, I've never done this. Mm-hmm. And so we did one-on-one D&D. We didn't stream it. I think he recorded it maybe for his Patreon podcast kind of a thing. But it was a lot of fun. And I wasn't like dreading it by any means, but I was thinking like, whatever. But as a player, I've never been so engaged because it was all about me, and it reminded me of being a dungeon master because I was engaged the whole time. And one of the reasons I like being a dungeon master is that I am engaged the whole time because I'm listening to everybody and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. When I'm a player, I find that I check out every once in a while because I'm like, well, it's not my turn. Or like,
Twitter.
Oh, I'm asleep, or oh, I'm in the other room. Okay, and I'm like, whatever, and you're paying attention, but like, am I? Yeah. This was really interesting, and so as a single player, Zix the Goblin, we were right up next to the Mournland wall, and I ran really close to it because I saw something familiar, and I did some investigations. I saw some footprints, and then I went into a tunnel. And I met a soldier from Seer, Seer is the country that got destroyed during the Great Mourning.
You got Mournland.
Yeah.
I want that t-shirt.
And I met this soldier, and I started talking to him, trying to figure out who he was. And Jordan knew who he was, but like Zix wouldn't know what a Seer soldier kind of looked like. Yeah. And so we were going back and forth, and then he started aging incredibly fast the more we got away from the Mournland. And I was trying to protect him. And again, in Zix's mind, I think the idea was like, oh, it's hurting you. I got to get you away from this evil Mournland thing. But the further I pulled him out, until the point where I almost got him out of the tunnel into the sunshine, and he just like collapsed and kind of, I said, the Indiana Jones, he chose the wrong grail and just kind of like fell apart. But it was really interesting to go through that on a single thing. And it was about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. We kind of just chatted. But it was super fun. Have you done solo D&D? Like,
I've done one to do that same thing you're talking about, catch somebody up or get them ready if they're going to be joining the campaign and taking somebody else's place. So I wanted them to have at least a little bit of in the shoes of their character, and then that would let them jump in. And I haven't done it often, but I have done it, and I do like it. There's something to a really small, intimate session. They don't seem to need to be as long because you can get so much done in that when you're both kind of interacting. So there's a lot that can happen.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily need to plan a 4-hour session for that person, but it is fun to say, let's go see what your character's doing, or let's see what your character is doing just before they get here, or let's see what happens when you guys were separate, or if you were separate. I think I had my guys in prison at one point, and the group escaped, but one was captured, and I did a session with the guy in the prison, and then there was they came back to rescue, so there was a whole other thing there. So there was, a lot was going on there too. So I thought that was really fun. I encourage trying it. And I probably should use it more because I think it'd be fun.
Yeah, I kind of want to use it more too. I also like the idea that your games had where you had the Discord chat so they could kind of like role play throughout the week.
They would role play a lot too. Yeah, their characters would be talking to each other in the taverns, and they'd be going on different adventures, but then they'd come back and they'd role play on the Discord quite a bit, which was fun.
And that was kind of just having a digital tavern. Like if I was running a game and you were running a game, but it was in the same universe, and so our players could be like, oh, well, I went and did this over here, and then I tell you like, hey, they're gonna go check out that dungeon. It looks like that would be a lot of fun.
We just found these ruins, and somebody was like, well, maybe we should go see them, because they would bring rumors back too. That was the other thing.
That's really cool.
We would roll for rumor tables. We would roll to explore the map, and in that tavern they would draw the hex crawl map on the tavern table. So all the adventurers who went to this tavern table could look at the tavern table and say, oh, so that group went over there and they found a river. Looks like it forks into 2 different directions. They found like some type of ghost village. Maybe we should go over there and then go a little bit further and see what we find.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the atmosphere I was trying to build with that tavern. So that was really cool. I love that whole concept. I stole it for sure. I'm pretty sure I read it in a book somewhere. It's not like I just came up with it, but that's a cool thing to have. The map is etched into a giant table inside the adventurers tavern, and it was the adventurers had their own tavern and they hung out with each other, and that was fine. But then the rest of the town had their taverns, and adventurers weren't really welcome in those other taverns. They were pointed back. You should go back to your tavern, you adventure-y folk.
Too fun. So I'm playing those Friday night games, and then I have the Thursday game that didn't happen. But the big news is that I'm going forward with Modular D6 testing. And so I've got a couple of OSR adventures that I'm going to adapt, and we're going to sit down and play. It's going to be Saturday nights starting in August, so next week. And I've got a handful of people interested, and what we're going to do is if you can make it that night, I'm going to kind of like work people in and out, and we're going to see how this functions. So I think I'm going to consistently play at least every other week, but if I can pull it off every week, I think would be good, and really like fine tune these rules, and then work on building like a little campaign setting, or maybe incorporating it into our vertical hex crawl as well. I also think that would be just a good place to play it too, and I can like play around with it there. So I'm really excited to do that in August and going forward. And then for those of you who are curious, I'm working on more Demon Lore videos for the main channel, but I am also planning an Old School Essentials review for the Jocular Junction channel, and if you haven't subscribed to that, you should. Plus, Mutant Crawl Classics and a bunch more DCC stuff. So I just need more times in the day, less sleep. It's crazy. But yeah, that's what's going on in my life, and I'm just kind of.
You are busy
working and writing, and today I'm having a Magic the Gathering day because friends are coming over for barbecue, and we're just gonna eat barbecue and play Magic the Gathering, and it's gonna be.
And then
really
last
exciting.
week was Gloomhaven, and we're doing a bunch of that, and
lots of stuff. Gloomhaven, yeah, we kind of play it when we get to it, but that's a fun game. That's a really fun game. I actually died in the last Gloomhaven game, but it's kind of bittersweet because if you die, there's no bringing somebody back in the game, but you're not out of the game entirely. So I died pretty early in our Gloomhaven like fight, and since you can't bring someone back, like they had to just win it without me, which they did, so I still get the experience and stuff, but not as much as them. But it's like really disheartening to be like, I couldn't save you, I'm so sorry. So anyway,
I died too soon.
We'll be back next week with another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show, an August episode. Crazy to think about that. Lots of time's flying. July just went by really fast.
Yeah. We're 8th month of this year. Pretty soon we'll be in the 22 year.
And then we'll have
craziness.
Jordan birthday coming up. So exciting. But yeah, thanks very much for watching and hanging out with us. We will see you guys all on the next episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. Take care.